Thank you very much, Carrie and Rob and Maureen, for a quick but excellent update on our Ontario's learning health system and what's happening at Trillium Health Partners to help us with that journey. So the next session will turn towards patient engagement in child health research, and it's a real pleasure to introduce Dr. Colin MacArthur. Colin is a senior scientist at the Sick Kids Research Institute and professor at the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Toronto. And he'll be our moderator for this session.
Thank you, Dean. It's lovely to see everybody in person again. This pre-COVID, post-COVID, it's been a journey. But I was just thinking, and I haven't said this to Nick, I've only seen Nick on camera for the last 2 years, been working together, and in my head, he was 5'10", and then he shows up today and he's like 6'2". It's like, I had a growth spurt. Yeah. So his COVID experience was a growth spurt, clearly. So thank you. As Dean said, I'm Colin MacArthur. I'm a senior scientist at Sick Kids, and I'm co-lead of the Ontario Child Health Support Unit. My first order of business, though, is to thank Vasanthi publicly for advocating for child health research at the start of the SPOR initiative. It's made a big difference to child health research in the province, and we really appreciate your support back then. So we have a session today on the value of patient engagement and the impact of patient-oriented research on child health. You can tell I'm an established researcher because I am wearing spectacles, which seems to be a necessary and sufficient factor for an established researcher. So today, our agenda is as follows. I'm going to give a brief introduction to OSHU, or the Ontario Child Health Support Unit. So that's OSHU, which is slightly different to the Ontario SPOR Support Unit, which is OSU. So I hope you can follow me. So I'll give you a brief introduction to OSHU, followed by 3 talks by colleagues, some leaders in the field, that will highlight for you the value of patient engagement and also the impact of patient-oriented research in child health on the culture, on strategy, on practice, and on policy. And we're going to use concussion and in-hospital pediatric care as clinical and health system examples. So, briefly, OSHU is one of the research centers within OSU. It's co-led by Sick Kids and CHEO with a mandate to support all child health researchers across the province. The vision of the unit is to build capacity in patient-oriented child health research, and by doing so, and there's lots of evidence now, by doing so, we can improve the quality and the relevance and the uptake of research, leading to our tagline for the unit, which is better research, better care, better outcomes. OSHU provides a suite of services to researchers across the province, including methodologic support, mostly around clinical trials and health economics, data management support run through the CHEO Centre, patient and family engagement and research support, which we focused on more in phase 2, and Francine will talk about that, and then training and education in patient-oriented research. To date, I'm just trying to decide if I can do it this way. Might be easier. To date, some of the highlights of OSHU include, we've done more than 1,300 methodologic consultations. All of the consultations have led to around $30 million new dollars in research funding. The unit has supported child health projects within some SPOR initiatives, including the SPOR research networks, such as Child Bright, we'll hear from them later, and the CIHR Innovative Clinical Trials Initiative. We've also done some health economic work with the Choosing Wisely Health Quality Ontario initiative, which is an initiative looking to reduce unnecessary treatments and tests among all ages, but in this case, particularly around children. And then we've also created an inventory of child health data sets. The data sets are hosted on the OSHU, on the CIHR website, and they include descriptions and links to over 100 child health data sets. And the website's been accessed over 5,000 times. From a training education point of view, we've hosted more than 120 training sessions on patient-oriented research in child health. It's webinars, workshops, presentations. And we've reached more than 700 participants each year that the unit's been in operation. We've hosted 3 provincial symposia on child health, patient-oriented research, reached more than 220 participants. And Francine will talk a little bit more about the Action in Child Health Research Symposium, our most recent symposium. We've also helped develop the patient-oriented research curriculum in child health, PORCH. As you can tell, acronyms are very popular in research. So PORCH, it's an online open access series of modules on patient-oriented research in child health, and co-designed with patient partners. Each module is co-led by a scientist and a patient partner. There are 4 modules currently. The ethics module is in development. Frank, you'll be glad to hear that as we speak. And the Research 101 modules, they're targeted towards patients and families interested in learning more about health research. And the patient engagement 101 modules are targeted towards researchers interested in learning more about patient and family engagement in their research activities. PORCH was initially funded through an OSU capacity building call. Myself and Nicola Jones are the co-PIs. 5 funding partners provided additional funding to expand the scope of the curriculum, including Child Bright. And this is a crazy number. We've had more than 100,000 unique visitors to the website, and the curriculum has been integrated into the onboarding processes for family advisory committees at hospitals across the province, into the Sick Kids Summer Student Program, and it's been used to onboard patient partners in CYSHC Net, which is a multi-site research network in the US focused on children and youth with special healthcare needs. There's some QR codes. My daughter taught me how to create. I couldn't get rid of the dinosaur, but these are the QR codes for some of the things we've talked about. On our website, if you want to look at resources, or there's a consultation form integrated into the website too. So that's a brief summary of OSHU, the unit, and now I'm going to hand over to Nick to talk a little bit about concussion. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So yes, I had a growth spurt over COVID, and I also gained some glasses. So I'm going to do the same as Colin and sort of see, do I need these or not? Well, maybe I'll go without. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to share, as my title shows, some examples of patient engagement and patient-oriented research in the space of pediatric concussion. It's going to be fast and furious today, but hopefully some links, and if nothing else, a new contact in this space, and I'd love to learn from all of you. Okay, so what am I going to try to touch on today? First, just try to quickly situate why concussion is an important childhood injury, something we care about in childhood. Why do we research it? Why do we do all these things? I'm going to share 2 examples of some projects that we've had the opportunity to work on over the years and are ongoing, both PEDCare and our most recent concussion priority setting partnership. And I'll end with a call to action, which I realize is going to be preaching to the choir in this room, but something that I try to use in my mind as we're designing our projects and engaging and creating our teams to conduct those projects. So let's give it a shot in our time together here. So concussion in childhood. I show this image of my friend Josh here just to have us all think about what really are we talking about? And at the end of the day, we're talking about kids like Josh, who have so many things ahead of them, goals, different social aspirations, educational, career. They just want to be kids, and they want to look to the future. And they have many injuries, including concussion, and it's something that we as a community need to work hard to support people like Josh to do the things that matter to them. That's why we're doing this. So keep Josh in mind as we talk about some of these projects today. So when it comes to Josh, Josh had a concussion, and his concussion, like many concussions, resulted in a few common signs and symptoms. For him, it was headache, dizziness, some anxiety, and decreased attention, especially in the classroom with his schoolwork. But what I want us to emphasize today is the impact of all of those symptoms on Josh's ability to do the things he needs, wants, and loves to do in his life. That could be playing the sports he loves, or going to school and learning, learning to drive the family minivan, or jumping on a trampoline with his buddies and just being a kid, right? So I want us all to think, yes, there's all these signs and symptoms when it comes to concussion, and kids like Josh experience these. But what we're really trying to do is get Josh and those like him back to the things that matter and really focus on function. So just a few statistics. They're fairly small on your slide, on your screen, and even smaller on the one I'm looking at. But just to reiterate that concussion is a very common injury. About 1.2% of Ontarians every year have a concussion. This is the highest rate that's ever been reported, and we know that children are at highest risk within the population for the injury. We also know from some great research looking at ED visits and in-office physician visits in Ontario that the concussion rates are going up and up and up and continue to do so. And these are only the concussions that are, or those who have concussion that are presenting at the emergency department or physician's offices. There's a lot of concussions that are going unreported and unnoticed. And keep that in mind. We know that when it comes to concussion, about 30% of young people that experience a concussion are going to have a prolonged recovery, beyond a month, but usually months and months, and sometimes years and years. And that group of the population really needs our support to get back to the things that matter to them. And we also know that not just the physical components of concussion, but some really great recent research is showing us that there's a real significant risk for mental health issues, psychiatric hospitalization, and self-harm in this population. So with our research of late, we're really exploring all of the different impacts that concussion has on young people, and there are many. So bottom line, many children have concussion in Ontario and beyond. There's an increased need for care, and there's a major impact on function and life. And as a result, it's a pretty important problem that we want to really tackle together. Okay, so let's get into some of these examples. I'm going to focus on two projects, the first being our PEDCare study and also our concussion priority setting partnership. So let's start with PEDCare. So the problem that we tried to address with PEDCare is this idea of bedroom jail. So this is the old way, and sometimes still happening, way of managing concussion, where we lock people away in their rooms until they feel amazing, till they don't have any headaches, no fatigue, no anxiety at all, which is a complete fallacy. It's not going to happen, right? Locking people away until they feel perfect is a real problem, and with research, we've now realized it's doing a whole lot more harm than good. So the objective of this study was to determine if the introduction of early physical activity was going to help with recovery, right? So in many other health conditions, we do get people moving again. Mobility is good, getting out there, some of the social interactions, so why not in concussion? Let's give it a try. The approach was a randomized clinical trial across 3 academic pediatric emergency departments, and we ended up randomizing 456 participants or children within the study, so it worked out really well. And our conclusion here was that early exercise was really helpful. For those young people that adhered to the exercise prescription, which was challenging, I'll just really highlight that. Telling young people to do exercise and then actually doing it in the way we tell them is not an easy thing to do. But for the ones that did it, they did recover at a quicker rate than those with orthopedic injuries in our controls. So what we realized here is this could be really a way to change policy and practice, and something we want to put into action. When it comes to our patient engagement components, we have published on this, and I'm just highlighting a co-author, Kathy Leader, who was our patient partner on the project and leader, and just wanted to acknowledge how amazing she is, and we couldn't have done this work without her. You can check this paper out online, fully open access, but I'll just highlight some of the patient engagement components that were put into PEDCare to make it a success. The first was, in advance of the project, a large number of qualitative interviews. So we had 50 one-on-one, 60-minute interviews with youth, caregivers, teachers, and sport coaches, really designed to get a sense of their opinions on the current standard of concussion care, this idea of rest versus activity. Are they even comfortable with exercising again after a brain injury? We wanted some opinions on the proposed study intervention. So our idea of getting people moving and how we were going to do that, were our patient leaders comfortable with that? And also a selection identification of our research outcome priorities. So really framed what we wanted to find out based on the opinions through these qualitative explorations. Also, in advance of our project, we consulted with existing patient engagement platforms. In particular, at Holland Bloor View Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, engaging with the Research Family Engagement Committee. And this committee was fantastic in reviewing many aspects of our project, including our survey questions and data collection processes and the wording used. So what we were asking, did that resonate with this patient leader group? Was it something that we could really roll out there on a large basis and get the information we were hoping for? So that was absolutely fantastic. And it also helped us recruit our patient partners for the project. So it was a chance for us to let some amazing family leaders know about the project, and if it sparked their interest, we kept them in the fold and they advised us throughout the project. Finally, following the study, just another example of patient engagement was around research participant feedback. So at the end of the study, we asked all participants and their families to provide perspectives on a range of topics, which we learned so much along the way and was extremely useful for us to think about the next phases of the study, but also think about our knowledge mobilization and translation efforts. So the value and impact here, certainly at a patient level, this idea of receiving improved evidence-based care, and also this idea of engaging patients throughout the project from design through to end of grant KT really helped us ensure that the findings were as relevant as we could make them, we hoped at least. Healthcare and provider level, it's giving healthcare providers different options and good evidence to manage their patients and give good advice and consultation along the way. And at a systems and policy level, really changing our protocols and policies around managing concussion. So really getting outside of that zone of bedroom jail, so let's just keep these kids at home, and changing the policies and procedures in various contexts, in schools, with sports organizations, to get kids engaged again in a supported way. And exciting part of this project was actually putting this evidence into practice through our PEDS Concussion Living Guideline for Pediatric Concussion Care. So this is a clinical practice guideline that's living. We do a bi-monthly systematic review of all the literature, and we change these findings with an interesting process with 42 experts across North America to fight it out on how we word these recommendations. But this evidence from PEDCare is now in this tool that's used across the world. And it can also inform legislation, like here in Ontario, Rowan's Law. Yesterday was Rowan's Law Day, just putting a little plug in there for everyone. Get on social media and check out all the activities. But this idea of taking evidence and putting it into policy and into practice and changing the lives of youth along the way. Okay, so in my time remaining here, the next example is a project that's ongoing right now. This is our Concussion Priority Setting Partnership. And the problem we were trying to address with this project was really meeting the need for concussion research across multiple domains. So many questions that are left unanswered. Where do we start? There's research networks forming. There's lots of energy from funding bodies around this. But where are we going to put those resources into action? Where are we going to start and focus? And for us, thinking about and looking to patients, caregivers, and healthcare providers, we thought that was a great place to start. What do you want so that we can bring this into action and actually invest in research that matters to you? So the objective of this project was to use a methodology from the James Lind Alliance that's quite established, that's been used across many different health conditions, to conduct a research priority setting study to identify a really tangible list, a top 10 research priorities, unanswered research questions in concussion from the perspectives of patients, caregivers, and clinicians. We started with an amazing steering group to get this all kicked off, and that steering group brought together patients, caregivers, clinicians, and researchers to set the foundation. So thank you to this amazing group of people. And the process was then a four-stage project. First, a large national survey that went out very broadly to patients, caregivers, and healthcare providers to just simply ask, what, if there was concussion research to be done, what do you think it should be done on? We received 1,700 or so questions from the Canadian public on what should be addressed in the research, so that's a lot of questions. The next phase was to then take a closer look at these questions and see, is there already evidence to answer some of these? And if so, we'll remove that question from our list of top 10, but we'll also create some knowledge translation products to let the public know the answers to those questions, because that message is clearly not getting across if we're getting those questions from the public. And then also to summarize those questions across some themes, which led to 59 summary questions. We then went back out to a pan-Canadian audience with another survey to get to try to narrow that question list down to really push towards those priorities. We had 989 Canadians complete that second survey, and it got us to a short list of 17 questions. The final stage was to take those 17 questions into a priority setting workshop with 24 patients and clinicians from different backgrounds to come up with that top 10 list. And you can imagine how fun that was for that group to really decide on what that top 10 should look like. So now we have the top 10. We're pretty darn excited about it, and we're in this post-prioritization phase where we're telling people like all of you about that top 10 and trying to get funders and other groups and researchers excited about these top 10. You can see our list there. We have some really creative knowledge translation products on our website, concussionpsp.com, to just describe the process and let people know about the top 10. And we published as well just to get the word out to the research community. So you can please check out our website if this is of interest to you. So the value and impact here, I think I'm, again, preaching to the choir, but this idea of making sure if we are going to be doing research that's going to affect patients and providers, that we ask them what matters and we act on it. At a system level, certainly we want to use this top 10 list to influence funding priorities and to get a better sense of where are we going to be investing energy, momentum, and resources, dollars, to conduct this research in the best possible way. I'll end on this call to action, and I can see I have 27 seconds left, so doing pretty good. We all know this, but we need to work together. We need to enable patients, and in this case, when we're talking about children, their families as well, who are a huge part of that unit, to be proactive partners, and to truly have the opportunity to shape health research and care that matters to them. And I'm just thrilled to be here today to learn how to do that, and we're all going to learn a lot together. I'll end with a huge thank you to both the Ontario Sport Support Unit as well as the Ontario Child Health Support Unit for everything you do, for giving us this chance to do this work, and for bringing us all together today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and our panel, and you learn lots, you share lots, and you connect. Thanks so much.
So unfortunately, I did not have a growth spurt over COVID. So I'm going to see if I can stand behind this podium, but I might move so you can see me as I go. My name's Francine Buchanan. I'm here to talk about the work that OSHU is investing in to scale and spread patient engagement across the area of child health research. I'm here today to present on behalf of a colleague, Kimberly Courtney out of CHEO, and myself, and the work that we've done in tandem to support child health research, but specifically how we can get that patient engagement work done on the ground. A unique thing between our two programs is that we are embedded within our hospital systems. And the reason that we're embedded in those hospital systems is really so that we can see firsthand what is happening, where the barriers are that need to be worked around, and what we really need to do to get those people on a daily basis engaging with patients and families. Another unique thing about the program that we have is that both Kim and I have dual hats. So Kim has experience as a staff as a child life specialist at CHEO, but is also a parent of a child with special health care needs. And myself, I am a healthcare researcher with a focus on shared decision making, but also are a parent of a child with medical complexity. So that's a unique aspect of our roles, is that we bring our lived experience as family advisors, which we were prior to taking on these roles, and we bring that into the work that we're doing. So what are the goals of our work? Well, really, it's to address the challenges facing engagement by taking all the research that a lot of the researchers in this room are doing and putting them into practice. So you could say we're like patient engagement implementation specialists, and we have to figure out how those things all work together. What we do to do that is we want to address, awareness and education, so getting the word out there. We want to ensure that the practices that are ongoing are high quality practices. We want to make sure there's uptake. So there's such great research, but is it actually being used, and is there uptake within this child health research area? And are the practices sustainable? So, sometimes there is research that goes on, it's fantastic research, and then the staff all disperse, and we hope that awareness building will bring it into other places, but maybe it's lost from the institution that it was initially done in. We want to make sure that as practices are being uptaken, that they're equitable and accessible so that diverse voices are at the table. And our ultimate goal is to really reduce, minimize, eliminate tokenistic engagement activities. Let's go. So, how do we do it? Let's see if this video goes. We market. So this is some advertising from CHEO.
The CHEO Research Institute is one of Canada's leading centres for kids' health research. We're always working on new ways of helping children, youth, and families, making discoveries today for healthier kids tomorrow. At the CHEO Research Institute, we make about 500 new discoveries every year. We want to make sure that we're asking the right questions, doing the right research, and approaching our work so that it helps families like yours. And you can be part of it. Yes, you! Have you been involved in a research project at CHEO? Do you believe in the importance of research? Share your experience and interest as a volunteer with the CHEO Research Family Leader Program. You don't need to be a research expert. You are an expert in being a CHEO family member, and your perspective is very important. Your participation and contribution will help our research projects be more successful. As a research project reviewer, you will review short summaries of our research projects and give us feedback from a family point of view. As a research project advisor, you're with us from the beginning, as part of a research team. As a CHEO family member, you will have a chance to use your experience to help us solve issues that come up along the way. When you join the CHEO Research Family Leader Program, we'll work with you so that your role fits with your schedule. Make a difference. Help other families. Be part of the discoveries. Join the CHEO Research Family Leader Program.
So Kim's done fantastic work at CHEO to develop the Family Leader Program. Some successes of the program is that they have delivered on 2 family councils. So they have a family council plus a youth-directed family council that all staff have access to gain input on how their research projects are going. They've also embedded a lot of their engagement into their processes. So for example, family leaders are grant reviewers on all internal CHEO delivered grants so that it's embedded in the process. You need the support so that you get that input from the family advisor during the review process, and that really grows how many people are using patient and family engagement and understanding how it's being reviewed by family advisors as well. They also have a Smart Start program where they match up early career researchers with patient and family advisors too, so that they learn hands-on the value of patient and family engagement from the beginning. I've lost my screen down here, but I'll look up here as we go. They also do a lot of training. So this is a new handout that is directed both at family leaders and to the research staff to ensure that they are both educated on what the values are and the practices of engaging patients and families in research. So at SickKids, we have a similar set of programs and services that we offer. We call it the PEER program, Patient Engagement and Research Program. In a sense, what we do is offer a full suite of supports around matching family advisors with researchers, doing document reviews. We have our Research Family Advisory Committee, which we actually just met last night. And then we support in terms of how we can support in terms of evaluation. And a lot of it is just one-on-one consulting because every project is different. We do a lot of awareness building and training. We embed it in a lot of our centers we're asked to do training, a lot of our research labs or networks that exist at SickKids that are broader across Canada. And then we also embed it in the training of clinical trainees as well. So we're actually embedded with fellows, and we are embedded in the training that goes on with them. One of the things that Kim and I are actually really passionate about is an initiative that just kind of grew organically. So as Kim and I started working together, we realized there's real benefit about sharing ideas about our practices, what we were doing, and the challenges we were facing. And then we invited one more person, and then we invited one more person, and it grew into this group that we call informally OSHU and Friends. And OSHU and Friends is a bi-monthly meeting where we get together with some people that are here in the room today. And we are practitioners. We are people that are doing patient engagement work on a daily basis. We may be patient engagement people that just are interested and want to learn a little bit more. And we invite everyone together, and one person may present on what their challenge is, and everyone else comes together and supports. Or we talk about our program and what we can do to grow the program that we're working on. And it's I'm looking at some faces here in the room of people who attend our OSHU and Friends events. We're passionate about it, it's fun, and it's supportive for a group of people that don't have much networking support to practice patient engagement on a daily basis in terms of building within healthcare systems that are complex. So we're really happy about it. If you're interested in joining, please just reach out. The other thing we've done, and Colin talked about this a little bit earlier, is out of OSHU and Friends, we realized that there was this growing group of people that were working on the challenging problems of patient and family engagement and practice. So we brought together advisors, family members, and people that are practicing patient and family engagement. And this conference wasn't just to learn about it, but was come together to tackle the challenges that we're facing on a daily basis. So one of the things that came out of one of the panels that we had on this session was a youth who said, I'm a youth, I'm a patient, I have challenges getting co-op jobs where all my peers are doing co-op jobs. Is there any way we can kind of integrate this into this co-op system that exists in high school? Challenging idea, didn't know if we had the groups within this meeting to actually accomplish it, but what it did is sparked an idea that this summer we held spaces in our studentship program at SickKids for cancer survivors. And we embedded them on labs so that they could work as summer students on the labs, but we gave them the support to say, I'm a cancer survivor, without having to hide their lived experience, which often happens in healthcare. We've had great results, we had great conversations, and we hope to grow it next year. The other thing that we've done here at SickKids is we've embedded patient-family engagement and patient-oriented research into the strategic plan. And what that does is it ensures that everyone in the institution, if they're doing this sort of work, can look to the strategic plan and say, look, I'm supporting our institution's strategic plan. That's an incentive to promote that type of work on a daily basis. It's a way of getting recognition of work that often goes unrecognized. The other thing that getting embedded in our strategic plan is we're invited to the meetings that can actually affect change and reduce some of the barriers that we have to practice patient and family engagement. So some of those barriers are just figuring out what is a family advisor within our environment, how is it different in research, how is it different on the clinical side. Other things that we've done is we are embedded into the strategic planning process right now for patient and family experience, because we know from talking to patients and families that part of their experience is being able to give back. How do we give back? By wanting to share our knowledge of our experience, exactly about the learning health system earlier. How do we embed that into our strategy on patient and family engagement? And then the other example that we do is because we're embedded and we're staff on site, we're accessible to people that are working on grants and getting things going. So the Popcorn Project is a great example of that. Early on in the planning process, I was tapped, as well as other patient engagement experts across Canada, to say, what does it mean to embed patient engagement in this large grant that we're applying to, this large network of networks we're trying to design. We were involved from the beginning, and what that meant is that we were able to become a line item on the budget. It means we were able to hire a patient engagement specialist to sit on that project team and do the daily work of engaging with patients and families, determining the best place to get input, and then communicating that back to the families afterwards on how their input was used. The real benefit of that early engagement is that we can have it as part of the executive, and we can have decisions being made involving patients and families right from the onset. The other thing, Peter and Sanjay will talk about this a little bit, is we've embedded patient and family engagement in some of the networks, such as the Pediatric Inpatient Network. So how can we support the people that they want to grow to do that work within their network? We provided training, mentorship, and really helped their employees grow within their network to support patient and family engagement. So that is about the work Kim and I have been doing. As I said, we are a welcoming community for those doing child health research, even those not doing child health research but want to just test patient-oriented research, patient engagement problems. Join OSHU and Friends. Share your information with us so that we can share it within our network. So if you're doing great work in patient and family engagement, share it with us, allow us to share it with our networks, or just get in touch to have a chat about what you're doing.
Okay, thanks. And I'm the middle height between Francine and Nick. Okay, thanks everyone. So my name is Peter Gill. I'm a general pediatrician and researcher at SickKids. I'll be presenting alongside with my colleague Sanjay Mahant, who will come on after. And I assume there'll be slides showing up momentarily. So we're going to be talking about the Canadian Pediatric Inpatient Research Network and about advancing practice with patients engaged at the center of our network. I think it's coming. I can start talking anyways, that's okay. So the goals of our talk are really to talk about the launch of our patient-oriented pediatric inpatient research network, to talk about how we've used patient priorities and health systems data to help design and inform our future research projects within our network, and then to provide examples of some of our research that's influenced practice and policy. I'll give him a second. So I can talk a little bit about some of the background. So we're, as general pediatricians, we work on the inpatient unit in the hospital, and about 20 to 25% of all hospitalized children are cared for on the general pediatric unit for conditions such as pneumonia, asthma, and what's really important is about 2/3 of all these hospitalized children are cared for in community hospitals, so outside of children's hospitals, which is really important because much of the research that's done is focused at children's hospitals only, where majority of care is in the community. Perfect, there we go. Despite being such an important area of care, there's a real lack of high-quality research on this population. In particular, there's very few high-quality randomized controlled trials, and that most of our research is informed by low-quality studies. There are significant numbers of barriers to research due to the variety of conditions that we care for, and there's really a lack of patient involvement in much of the research topics. So for these reasons, we launched the Canadian Pediatric Inpatient Research Network in 2019 with the goal of generating scientific data to improve outcomes for hospitalized children. The photo there is a photo of our inaugural network meeting in 2019, and the Ontario Child Health Support Unit was integral to supporting our network to actually come together and launch foundationally. And this was, just timing is everything. To have a chance to meet in person and form relationships was so integral to when the pandemic happened after. We had really good foundational relationships. And from the outset, we've embedded patient partnerships from the outset. So this is a nice sort of segue from Francine's talk. So we've really had patient partners at the core of PERN. So at our inaugural meeting, we had talks on how to engage with patient partners, and Francine did one of those lectures. And then thankfully, from the support of the Ontario Child Health Support Unit, where they've embedded Francine and Kim into CHEO, and the person in the middle is Michelle Quinlan, who was the role before Kimberly Courtney took over at CHEO. And they've been really integral to help us actually learn how to work with patient partners from the outset. And all the resources that Francine just talked about, we've engaged from the outset with our first grant of, how do we identify patient partners to work with? And they've been helpful to inform and support us in this way. In addition, a lot of our foundational work has been establishing partnerships with different stakeholders. So in addition to all of the children's hospitals which are represented in our network across Canada, we've also formed relationships with other decision makers and knowledge users, for example, Pediatric Nursing Association, other SPORE units such as the SPORE Evidence Alliance, and Children's Healthcare Canada, amongst others. They're totally out of sync. In our vision is really achieving the highest quality of care for children in hospital, and this is our conceptual model, which I think after seeing the learning health system model, this is a sort of 1.0 version, which we'll need to work on. But really at the outset of PERN is patients and families, which is at the heart of which derives our questions and from the input. And from these, we also generate questions from clinical practice, everyday care. And then we take these questions, evaluate them through data, and really PERN is a living lab. So we are very much practitioners at work, taking care of children every day, both in community and academic hospitals. And this is the area that we research. It's very embedded care. And from those, our living lab, we then implement those findings into practice, into the healthcare system, hopefully improve clinical practice, and then use that to inform new questions to reevaluate with data. So we really try and implement things in real time and then reevaluate those afterwards. So after we launched our research network, or PERN, one of our questions initially was, well, what should we focus on? Now that we're in an area of care, we care of children with many different conditions. So we wanted to take time and really be thoughtful and to think about what priorities that we wanted to initiate. So we took a two-pronged approach. First, we used a James Lind Alliance price-setting partnership with Nick, really nice explained what that is, where we use consensus methods to identify priorities informed by patients and by evidence syntheses. And we also want to look at data, what are areas that are really costly and common to the healthcare system. So actually our first grant for PERN we were fortunate that there was a Catalyst grant around patient-oriented research, around bringing together patients, clinicians, and knowledge users around identifying areas for future research, which essentially was perfect timing for us. And we were successful in winning that grant, and that launched our first big priority-setting partnership, where we were informed by patients, caregivers, and clinicians around the most important unanswered research questions. We had about 500 questions submitted by around 200 individuals across Canada, and we had an overall steering group informed by nursing professionals, community pediatricians, academic pediatricians, as well as patients, caregivers, and youth. Our final partnership done during COVID, as in the virtual meeting, really brought together 24 individuals from across Canada, 12 youth caregivers, and 12 healthcare professionals to identify our top 10 list of questions. So, not surprisingly, they really did not focus on specific diseases. It very much was around processes and areas of care. So, for example, the most important question was around what are best practices and care models for children with medical complexity? Each child is unique with very unique needs, but in general, how do we care for children that are complex in hospital? How do we ensure that we have effective communication between healthcare workers and families? How do we support Indigenous parents and families when they're in hospital? How do we ensure healthcare needs meet those with developmental disabilities such as autism? How do we support families in hospital? What are mental health supports? How do we incorporate shared decision making into everyday practice? How do we mitigate impacts of prolonged hospital stay, as well as how do we shorten length of stay? And how do we increase communication between healthcare professionals? So, I think, not surprisingly, it's not a short list of straightforward questions. They're quite broad, but in many ways, these are the questions that we encounter every day that we don't know what to do with. And so this was a really important input that's guiding our network moving forward. And this was something that was picked up by CIHR just as an exemplar example of research which really works with nursing professionals, community pediatricians, and families, and to actually identify what should we do research on. But we also wanted to look at data to try and understand what are important areas that have high burden and high cost. And we're fortunate in Ontario that we have such great population-based healthcare data with ICS. So we looked at, over a 5-year period, all hospitalizations in Ontario, both community and academic, to understand what are the areas that are common and costly. And so this is, just to orient, essentially the top 25 most costly conditions. The y-axis is number of encounters, and then the X is cost. So essentially, conditions that are in the top right are those that are very common and very costly. And not surprisingly, they're some of the common bread and butter conditions like premature birth, but also things like pneumonia and bronchiolitis and asthma. Things that are really common, but cumulatively on the system are very important, but they're areas that we lack a lot of important high-quality research. And secondly, what's really important is around where children are cared for. So the light, depending on your color orientation, the light color on the left is children's hospitals, the dark is community hospitals, the left is cost, the right is number, just showing that for many, many conditions, over 2/3 to 75% are cared for in community hospitals, both numbers and cost. So a huge proportion of hospital care is in community hospitals, which are not generally represented in terms of much of the research. But it's really important as a network to really embed research in areas of care that children are actually being seen and hospitalized in. So shifting from giving a sense of our foundation of a network, the inputs of our priorities, both from patient perspective as well as data and health system, I'm going to pass over to Sanjay to talk around how research is influencing practice and policy.
Thanks, Peter, and welcome everyone. So the first question is, what type of research does PERN do, and how does this research influence practice and policy? So our research is patient-oriented, but it also follows the framework, I think, of outcomes research. And outcomes research asks this central question is, what is being achieved for patients, and what can we do better? And it focuses on outcomes that patients experience in the real world in order to generate information to improve decisions, healthcare policies, and patient outcomes. And I'm going to share you some examples of studies and questions that we've tried to answer in the domains of outcomes research. So comparative effectiveness, comparing two strategies of managing a condition or a situation, patient experience, how do we align patients' values and preferences with their treatment choice, and health systems improvement. So how are we doing as a healthcare system? And I'm going to use bronchiolitis as an exemplar condition. Peter just mentioned that it's one of the most common and cumulatively expensive conditions in hospital care, and I think many of you saw in the fall with the triple-demic, the impact bronchiolitis had on both parents, children, the healthcare system, and hospitals. And one common knowledge gap in how we manage children with bronchiolitis is around how we use that device on this infant's thumb, the pulse oximeter. So it's a non-invasive technology. Many of you have it on your wristwatch. And it's important for bronchiolitis to understand if the blood oxygen levels are dropping to a serious level so that we can identify which children we need to use supplemental oxygen on or which children need extra breathing support. And there's been a long-standing debate in our field and amongst also parents around how we use this device. Do we use it all the time, continuously, or do we just use it intermittently, such as every 4 hours? But there have been no trials in pediatrics on this important issue. And one of the first major studies we conducted in PERN was a multi-center randomized clinical trial funded by CIHR comparing these two pulse oximetry strategies in children with bronchiolitis. And as Peter mentioned, important to anything we do in PERN is the inclusion of community hospitals. So half of the patients enrolled in this trial were from community hospitals in Ontario. And we found that the less intense approach led to similar patient outcomes, so length of stay, safety, and parent-reported outcomes, and there was actually better nursing satisfaction with intermittent monitoring because of reduced workload. So our trial really supported the use of this less intense approach to monitoring in children with bronchiolitis. And I think given the human health resource scarcity with nursing, knowing that we can do less safely and also maintain patient experience and outcomes is really important. So not only did we show that it was clinically effective to do less in terms of monitoring, we also showed that it was also cost effective, or the costs were similar with the less intense approach compared to the more intensive approach. And we examined this from both a patient perspective and also a health system perspective. So importantly, doing less did not shift costs to patients. Then, following this, we did a multi-center qualitative study using implementation science to understand how can we best de-implement continuous monitoring in practice. And that included both patient and clinician perspectives on practice change. So this is just one example. I think my slides might have just disappeared, but this is one example that highlights how PERN is answering important clinical questions and determining clinical effectiveness, cost effectiveness, and then using implementation science theory to understand how to change practice. And this information is informing national guidelines and international practice guidelines, hospital quality improvement and policy, and also bedside practice. So I'm going to shift from clinical effectiveness to patient experience and shared decision-making. So this is also an important issue for PERN in the work we're doing in bronchiolitis. And poor feeding and the need for fluid therapy is the most common reason for hospitalization in infants with bronchiolitis. And there's two options, nasogastric feeds or intravenous fluids. And trials have shown that they're both effective, but providing breast milk or formula via nasogastric tube results in less IV pokes, better nutrition, and less hunger. However, most parents are not even offered a choice of IV fluids, as they are the dominant mode in Canada. And this is one of our patient partners, Kim de Castris Garcia, who said, if I'd only known that nasogastric fluids were an option, I would have asked for it. It was awful to see Marceline so hungry. I wish that I was involved in the decision. So Peter is leading a PERN multi-center study to understand how we can improve shared decision-making in fluid therapy choice in bronchiolitis. And again, this study involves children's and community hospitals with patient partners. And we're also looking at how we're doing as a healthcare system with bronchiolitis. So for the past 15 years, bronchiolitis guidelines have really advocated for focusing on doing less, as medicines are not effective for reducing the duration of illness. And our population-based ICS study looked at over 2 million children in Ontario at 141 hospitals and showed that while hospitalization and mortality rates were the same, there was a dramatic increase in ICU use and costs over time. And this was likely due to overuse of a newly introduced respiratory support intervention called high-flow nasal cannula that had limited evidence base supporting its routine use. So now this study has informed efforts to reduce unnecessary high-flow nasal cannula and look at appropriateness of ICU use in bronchiolitis care. And we're also doing studies in many other areas, and just to give you some examples, health equity is also an important stream. This is Victor Doe, who has led a multi-center qualitative study that's partnering with families to understand how we can improve care in those whose preferred language is other than English. And then Francine, who you met just now, is leading a study looking at how we can co-design tools to support shared decision-making in children with medical complexity. And I think largely because of our deep and broad partnerships and the great methodologic support we've received from OSHU and OSU, we've been successful in a short time with grant funding and high-impact publications within our field. So just in summary, we're really excited in PERN around this vision of achieving the best quality of care and health outcomes for children who are hospitalized in the general pediatric setting through this emerging learning health system. And it's really important, I think, the integration of clinical practice, research, and KT, and also the partnerships with patients, families, youth, health system decision makers, and clinicians. And just a final thank you to OSHU, OSU, and all our funders in this journey. Thank you.